Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission, to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Starr. Welcome to this edition of The Universe Between Your Ears. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Gabi Mosheyev.
Hello to everyone. Great to be here again.
And we got a good guest today by the name of Roger Ramsukh. Roger is the award-winning author of the book, The Fearless Parent, 20 Ways to Inspire Success, Respect, and Gratitude, and the upcoming book, Authentic Life, Infinite Abundance, Creating Abundance Through Discovering Your Authentic Purpose. He speaks internationally and uses his passion, knowledge, and relatability to increase his audience's knowledge and engage them on a personal level. Roger is also a therapist, certified in cognitive behavioral therapy, applied behavioral analysis, and crisis intervention. Among many other things, he holds workshops for parents on all kinds of issues related to their children, including autism, accommodations for cognitive delays, appropriate ways to discipline, setting limits with older kids, dealing with verbal outbursts, depression, anxiety, and an array of other topics. Roger, welcome. I'm going to warn you right now, you may have to deal with all of those things with us.
That is excellent, Tim. No problems at all. And thank you so much, both Tim and Gabby, for having me on. This is an absolute pleasure.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So, I'm not sure where we're starting. Once again.
Well, that's whenever I hear my bio read like that, I'm always like, wow, there's a lot there. There's a lot to talk about there.
And I cut it down, man. So so let's do this. What's your hot button? What's the sort of the thing that's really got you going, got you excited, got you?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, some of the people that I've been dealing with this week, some of my clients, I'll just kind of bring up to speed on what's forefront in my mind.
Okay, folks, we are back. For those of you who were paying attention, we had some technical issues, had some serious echo that came out of nowhere, and it wouldn't go away, and so we have restarted things, and rather than try to completely redo the whole deal, we're just jumping right in where we left off. Roger, I'm going to throw it over to you. Basically, the question that I had asked was, what's getting you out of bed in the mornings currently? What's exciting you? So I'll let you from there, sir.
So some of the things that are forefront of my mind right now are actually related to some of the individuals that I'm working with, in the sense that there are a few people that I'm working with right now that they're just a little bit lost in what to do with their life and what direction to take and what choices to make. And man, I so relate to that, because I think back in the day, I was one of those kids that I did really well in school, but didn't know kind of what road to take, what avenue to pursue. And I think, there are those kids, and my wife is one of them, that knew from the age of 13 what she wanted to do with her life, and that's exactly what she's doing. And God bless those people. And then there are people that they have a specific talent in something, and they know, I'm going to be an accountant because I'm really, really good at math or something. Or I've loved science since all throughout school, and I'm going to pursue science in some way, or astronomy. And they have one specific skill set, and they pursue that. And in some ways, I envy those people, or I envied those people, because they had their path kind of really well defined for them. And it kind of, it limited their options. Sometimes how when you have too many options, it actually just leads to confusion, not greater freedom, right? And freedom comes from the ability to make a choice with few distractions, and to say that this is the thing. Tony Robbins talks about the origin of the word decision being to cut off, from the Latin to cut off all other possibilities. And when you make that decision, your thinking is clear, you feel better, and you go forward with purpose. I mean, that is one of the things that I work with people, both kids and parents who are entrepreneurs, to help themselves define that, because that is the essence of how to achieve success, in my opinion. Again, it's my opinion, but for a lot of people that I work with, this is one of the biggest challenges, to say, what do I actually want? And this goes back to childhood. And, just to give you a little bit of background of my story, is that I went to university not really wanting to go to university, but knowing that I should go to university, but not really knowing what I wanted to do. Now, I came from a family where I had two choices to pursue: doctor or lawyer. That's it. And that my dad did make a concession. He says, okay, well, I'll accept engineer too. But that was it. And none of those really resonated with me. And I didn't really have the marks to become a doctor. So, I mean, I was really truthful with myself about that. And I wouldn't say that I truly had the passion for that, which you kind of need when you're getting to get into something like that.
Yeah.
But I kind of went into university thinking I would become a lawyer. But about midway through university, I came to realize a couple of things about me. And I still not really knowing what I want to do, but I knew that I didn't want to be in conflict for a living. And what do lawyers do? They, for the most part, they engage in some kind of conflict and come to some kind of resolution out of that. Now, I'm not necessarily making any comment about a lawyer per se. All I'm saying is that I realized that wasn't for me. So I kind of went to university and looking at the things that I was good at. And thankfully, I was good at a few things. I was one of those kids that was, I'm what I call a generalist. I'm pretty good at a lot of different things, but I'm not a specialist in many. One of the things I was really good at, it was psychology. And I always say I was that kid in high school where if you had problems with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you usually end up coming and talking to me. And I would kind of help you through that. Like, I was that kid, right? And so I knew that I had an interest in people. I knew that I had an interest in helping people live better lives. And I knew that I felt good when I could help somebody through a tough situation. And out of that situation, there was a resolution that they felt good about. It may not be what they wanted, because it's not, I mean, sometimes you talk to somebody who broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend and they want to get back together with that person, but that may not be in the cards for them. But if I could help them come to a resolution that they were okay with, I was like really happy with that. And so I kind of naturally fell into psychology as a consequence. But one of the things that when I speak to people that have a job, or even people that have taken the leap into entrepreneurship, one of the things I say is, how did you end up here? How did you end up doing that? And it's amazing how often, especially for people who have a job, that the answer is, well, my brother-in-law got me the job. Or I sent out a bunch of resumes and this was the first company to call me back. And so next thing you know, 20 years later, you're waking up in the middle of the night, you're somewhere between 40 and 60, and you're saying to yourself, is this what my 20-something-year-old self envisioned for my life? And now I have a mortgage, and I have in Americans, for Americans, 401k, for Canadians, it's RSPs, vested with a company. I have kids about to enter university. I have a car payment and I have a mortgage payment. And how the hell did I end up here?
Right.
And I am so in awe, honestly is a good word, awe, of those people who have that high-paying job, that safe, secure income, and they throw it all away. Not throw it all away, but they make the decision to leave and say, you know what, this does not fulfill me, and I'm going to go do the thing that actually fulfills me, even if it's a lower-paying job, which a lot of times it is. Yeah. But it is more fulfilling to them. And man, I have the utmost of respect for somebody that takes that leap and puts themselves and their family into that gray no man's land of uncertainty in order to pursue their passion. And I mean, so many times you hear the ones that make, that make the news article or make the magazine article or make the website are the ones that have done it successfully. But I always wonder how many of them maybe regretted that decision, or maybe are in the midst of a situation where they're not the thing that they thought they were passionate about wasn't what they were passionate about in the end of it all, and they actually made a leap prematurely because they hadn't thought it out.
And now there's so much use.
Yeah, right. Or holding some contract jobs. Sure, yeah.
There's a lot in what you said here, and I relate to all kinds of things. The first big thing that jumped out at me was this knowing people and, the jealousy of people who just know what they want to do from an early age. And I absolutely understand that. You were almost talking about me for a lot of what you were saying when you were talking about yourself. Same thing. I did very well in school. I'm interested in 1,000 different things. It causes the bright, shiny object syndrome, when you're trying to create something.
Squirrel.
But the people who just know, I want to I want to have my own construction company. I want to build houses. It cuts off all the other choices, but it makes a decision for them that is a huge decision. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge thing to be able to move off of your plate and not have to worry about, and otherwise you can't spend your whole life trying to figure that question out. And I have spent a damn big chunk of my life trying to figure that out. And the job thing.
As have I.
Yeah. How'd you end up at this job? Oh, well, that one ended, and this was the first one that came along, and so I took it, and here we are. Very little planning goes into what job we take most of the time for a lot of people.
Yes.
There's no thought to, does this really serve me in the long term? It's just, this is going to help me pay the bills this week.
Yeah.
So then,
Gabby, similar situation?
There comes a question. I understand that you explored these topics, right, in your book, Discovering Your Authentic Purpose, or Creating Abundance Through Discovering Your Authentic Purpose, right? So have you explored this challenge once you locked into this, right? And in this society, once you made those, the opportunity cost, right? Once you chose something, other doors are not, so you can't backpedal and just go in another direction so easily, right? So how, of course, other people...
You can't step in the same river twice, I think, is what Epictetus said.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of writing on this topic, and what comes to mind recently, actually, one of the Facebook founders, Chris Hughes, he is a roommate of Mark Zuckerberg's in Harvard. And this guy, he was not a coder. He was actually into a lot like you, a psychologist. And he really helped them market Facebook in the early days, right? Mm-hmm. And so he came up with an interesting book called Fair Shot. And what he's saying, exactly what you're saying, once people, how do you, in this environment, continue discovering your authentic purpose? Are you addressing this a little bit in your book?
Yes, that has almost become the sole focus of what I've been doing the last couple of years. And I'm obsessed almost with this question and with this quest of how do you discover your authentic self, and what are the steps, and how do you know when you've hit it, and what do you do with it once you finally hit it, once you finally discovered it. That is the thing that really jazzes me right now. This is what I help other people with, because I had to go through that. I was the one who was lost. I was the one who was saying, and I think Tim and I were speaking just a little bit before we formally got on the air, to say that I've been fired from jobs, and sometimes I admittedly, sometimes I was fired from jobs because I wasn't doing a good job. My heart wasn't in it or whatever, and I just didn't do a good job. Absolutely, you have to own those, right? But there are a number of jobs that I've been fired from or I just lost because, let's say, the company closed down or something like that, right? But some jobs I lost, And I was astounded that I was let go, because I was very much one of those people that I believe that, as I've been told, that you show up at a job, you give it your all, you give it more than your all, you serve without expecting reward, you do more than is expected of you, and the riches and the acknowledgement and the accolades will come to you. And I got to tell you, that wasn't necessarily the case. I mean, sometimes it was, but eventually I was still either fired or let go for some really ludicrous reasons. And it was after the last job that I had, the last formal job that I had, that I'm sitting there that evening, still in like a quandary. Why does this keep happening to me? Why is this happening to me again? When I was serving my best, and I was working with special needs kids in a classroom setting, and I was wonderful at it. I'm not saying that because it's me. I'm saying that because I was amazing at it, and I've been doing that for a while. And I let go from that job, and I'm like, how is this possible? Now, it depends on who you speak to about this and how woo-woo you want to get with some of this stuff. But the truth of the matter was that even as I was doing the job, I was kind of getting a little bit bored, because I'm really good at what I do. And I know that sounds like I should be double jointed because I'm patting myself on the back so hard, but that is the truth. That I was really good with kids, and I got all the issues straightened out in this classroom that I was called into within about 3-4 months. And there wasn't a challenge anymore. So I was enjoying the kids, but from let's say from a clinical perspective, it wasn't challenging anymore. And I remember saying to myself a number of times, I'm wasting my time here. I need to be impacting people on a bigger scale than just in a small classroom. And again, depending on who you speak to, the more woo people will say that I called that firing to me because I didn't want the job anymore. And I spoke it into the ether, into the universe, right? And the universe between my ears was saying, you don't need to be here. You don't want to be here. Yep. And somehow I made that happen, right? So I'm sitting there that night thinking about all these things, and I just came to the conclusion by myself that, you know what, God has bigger plans for me, and I have bigger plans for me, and this just wasn't meant to be. And my wife comes home, and as I'm telling her the story that night, she says very succinctly and very plainly, as spouses often do, she says, it's obvious, dummy, God doesn't want you in this job because you've been talking about doing your own thing for so long and you're not doing it. And the truth is, if God brings you to it, God is going to bring you through it. There's a desire in your heart, and you've been proclaiming this for like forever, but you've been procrastinating on it because you've been derailed by the job or sidetracked by other things. And shiny object syndrome, I'm very much a part of that. As one of my friends says, she thinks she was a magpie in a former life. Every shiny object attracts her attention.
Yep.
You know, and so she says, this is your opportunity that you've been given to go and start again intelligently and do the thing that you actually want to do. Stop bellyaching about it.
I'm going to, no, go ahead and finish. But I wanted
to. No, I kind of am done. That is the path that set me on this as I'm answering Gabby's question. That's what started this all, Gabby. Yeah.
So, you know, my story with the job that I had at the insurance company is the same thing. I got in there after a number of years. There was nothing more to truly learn. And I realized it wasn't going to take me career-wise, it wasn't going to take me anywhere, but it was a good job. I enjoyed what I was doing. I liked the people I was working with. And I just stuck around, but I was thinking the whole time, you know, I should do something on the side, get something going for myself, you know, and then eventually I get the phone call, go home, you're done.
Yeah. And
it's exactly the same thing. You put it out there, you put it out there, you put it out there. Eventually you get what you're asking for. You know, one way or another. It's just a question of what form it takes.
These days it's not a phone call, it's a tweet.
Yeah.
Today Rex Tillerson got a tweet.
As he's told to eat salad.
We'll get divorced that way now.
The universe is getting better at delivering.
Even the universe has a short attention span now.
Yes, apparently. Oh gosh.
Yeah. So, so
So
how
so
do
this
you?
side.
What I
Yeah,
want to
go
ask, and if you need to put something else in there first, do it. But what I want to ask is, are you helping people then? As I'm saying this, I'm thinking you already said yes. But so you're helping people to figure this out for themselves. What is it they want to do? What's their calling? How do you have a sort of a structure for that, a wireframe format that you can follow, or?
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. So to answer your question, I'm going to jump back into a little bit of my story, just to say that it took me a while to kind of figure out who am I, and in some of these moments of crises that you're called upon to answer these really profound questions that either you're not inclined to answer before, or you don't know how to answer them, so you kind of put it off. But when something like a firing, or when something like a death in the family, or when something like a moment of crisis of whatever sort causes you to call into question every belief that you have about yourself, every single thing that you think, and how do you think about it. I mean, those are profound moments, and like you said, Tim, those can last. That is a conversation with yourself that can last a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a journey that I'm still on, but I think I've made quite a bit of headway in it. But it is probably one of the most profound things you could ask yourself. And I always say this about school, about formal schooling, is that the three most important things that you need to know about your life, you are not taught in school. You're not taught how to manage money, or how to the truth about money, and how to deal with it. You're not taught how to pick a spouse, and you're not taught what to do with it as a career, as a vocation. And the three most profoundly important things in your life, there's no program in the school to teach it, right? And the truth is that a lot of people kind of muddle through it, and the honest truth is that a lot of people do it badly. And I put myself in that category, at least in the terms of the career part, that I did it badly for far too long. So one of the things I say is that one of the things I love about entrepreneurism is that when you start a business, it requires, a successful business that really resonates and really is in alignment with what you believe in, if you're doing it the right way, then it really causes you to question, how do I think? What are my habits? What is that I actually want? What is that can I actually admit my weaknesses? Can I actually sit there and be absolutely real with myself and say, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do it this way, or this business doesn't resonate with me. I just got into it because I thought I could make some money. I opened up a Subway franchise. I worked with a Subway shop owner about a year ago. And unfortunately, one of the first things he said to me was, I just got into Subway because I heard it's a money-making franchise, but I freaking hate it.
Yeah.
Right? And now he was in a crisis with his family and with his kids, and he was working in excess of 20 hours per day, either at the store or after the store, just doing stuff. And these really profound questions that I started asking, he says, with tears in his eyes, he's saying to me, I've never stopped to actually ask these questions of myself. And I'm worried about how to advise my kids, because look at the example that I've given for them.
All right.
And that is the thing that jazzes me, right? And so I created a program. So I created a program that has 4 steps, and each step has 4 steps in it. I call it the Dare to Set Fire to Your Dreams, to Your Passions program. So Dare to Set Fire, and each step, the DARE, each step is a certain piece of the puzzle that I guided myself through first, because I had to do this for myself, and that. Some of the most teary-eyed, let's say low self-esteem conversations I've had have been with myself, when I said, wow, like and it's a painful process when you're asking yourself these questions and sometimes you don't know the answer, or you do know the answer and you're ashamed to even say it to yourself, right? Like I've done this and this because I was just absolutely selfish or greedy, or I did it because I was bloody lazy, or I did it because everybody else was doing it this way and I just thought I would do it that way too, and then the riches would fall from the heavens like manna from the sky. I mean, those are some of the reasons that I had for some of the decisions I made in my life. And so what I do with individuals now, especially kids, because this is my hot button, and what I help entrepreneurs to do with their kids is to start thinking about things from this perspective of what do I stand for? What is important to me? What are my values? What are my beliefs? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the things that actually drive me? What are my aspirations? I mean, do I want the Porsche 911 Turbo because my friend said it was a cool car? Or do I want the Porsche 911 Turbo because I honestly want a Porsche 911 Turbo because that is my dream car? By the way, answer to that last question is yes. I'm going to have a maroon 911 Turbo because I have thought about that car since I was 7 years old. So, but how many people buy stuff or acquire stuff just because they want to fit in, or because they live on a certain street and somebody that, I mean, that is somebody that is totally out of alignment with who they actually are as a person. And I'm going to say that more often than not, there comes a reckoning at some point in their life when they're forced to call into question all of the stuff that they've acquired and all of the things that they've done, whether it's really true, whether it truly adds value, brings them joy, or whether they did it just because they thought it was something that they should do. And I'm going to say that there's a lot of unhappiness, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety. I mean, how many people are, I'm trying to think if it's a certain type of antidepressant that is the most prescribed drug in North America right now. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Anyway, that part is important. What is important is the fact that why is depression such a big thing? Is it because people haven't been taught how to live in alignment or to be happy and to show gratitude for the things that they do have, instead of always thinking about from a lack, a scarcity mentality of I don't have this and I don't have that and I don't have this spouse that looks like this, like she should be on the cover of Victoria's Secret's catalog, or I don't have this guy that looks like Schwarzenegger with the face of Brad Pitt or something. I mean, it's such a poor way to go through life, thinking about things from the perspective of what I don't have, instead of saying, here's a flesh and blood person who loves me in front of me. And man, I love him.
I'm going to jump in. One of the big pieces to me is that you're talking about critical thinking, right? You're talking about questioning the things that you think and the decisions that you make and thinking beyond tomorrow and stuff like that. And we don't teach our kids to do that because adults today have not been taught to do that. And so what else would we expect? You can't teach what you don't know. But if we were brought up to just, every time we make a decision to think beyond that and go, okay, what's it going to take to do this? Mm-hmm. And what, just randomly think about, just daydream about what are the pieces that are going to be required for this. We might learn to just do that kind of thing as a subconscious action as we go through life, and you make better decisions because of it. It's that simple. Yeah. That, to me, that's just a big piece of what our problem is right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The whole concept of questioning your motivations for a decision. I mean, if people just started there to say, why am I stuck on this? Why am I so angry with this person? Or why am I so angry with myself? What is my motivation behind being so angry about this thing? Or why do I want that thing so badly? Or why am I pursuing this avenue of thought? Why You know, when you get a thought out of your head and you try to change it's like, I'm going to stop thinking about this thing. And then next thing you know, 10 minutes later, you're like, I'm thinking about this thing again. Why is it you can't get off that mental train, right? So often that comes down to, when I speak to people, so often that comes down to a script that they have running in their head. And this is a little bit of CBT thinking that goes into this, but I don't want to make it sound like this is all just theory stuff. I want to make this as practical and as relatable for your audience as I can. Just to say that a lot of times we fall into patterns of actions and of beliefs because of a script that we have about something. And that script could be something like, well, mothers are supposed to cook meals for their kids. And if they don't cook meals for their kids, then she's not a good mother, right? People have a script about that. Or the other side, you know, from the male perspective, is like a good father, a good, quote unquote good father, you know, provides for his family at all costs, even to sacrifice of his own happiness, even to the sacrifice of family time and everything else. He puts money in the bank and food on the table, right? And anything else, then I'm a failure as a father, right? And it's such see, if those thoughts serve you and you work in those and you work in that way and you are fine with that, then God bless you. You know, if you define yourself as I am the father that provides and you take pride in that, then God bless you. The problem comes when you are not able to do that, right, or you're uncomfortable doing that, or you're just not willing to sacrifice certain things anymore, and it's just bothering you, but you've still got this thought in your head that to be a good father, I should be doing this thing. Well, who says? Is that because of how you were raised? Is that because the message that you get from your friends who say, well, you're the father, dude, you got to do this? Really start to question, because that is where the base of anxiety, that's where the basis of depression comes from, right? And I'm not going to say like profound clinical depression. I'm not talking about an imbalance of serotonin and dopamine in the brain. I'm saying on a lighter surface level of depression. But even in profound cases of depression or anxiety, it's amazing how often the medication doesn't work, or the medication doesn't work for long, because the thinking hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, we are so good in North America at prescribing a pill for stuff and then leaving it at that. And this is one of my big criticisms about the way some mental health stuff, especially with kids, are approached, in that, yes, give them a pill, there's a chemical imbalance. If you deem there's a chemical imbalance, they need impulsivity control, then fine, give them 2 milligrams of Ativan if that's what you deem is necessary. But how about before we go there, let's try changing the way they think about stuff. Let's try giving them some strategies to cope with their anxiety. And then if medication is still needed, that can calm or slow down some thoughts or change the way they think about certain things, so that these other techniques and these other programs have a chance of working. Because if you really want to be depressed about something, you can counteract the effect of any drug. I don't care how many milligrams you put on it. Right. So when we think about, and I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, so I'm going to try and bring it back on track. But when we think so often about our motivations for stuff, and when parents are trying to teach their kids, and entrepreneurs who think differently yet again are trying to guide their kids, hopefully become entrepreneurs, and that is their path. There's a really big disconnect between the stuff that they learn in school and then the thinking that goes on in the home. And sometimes you get those kids that they're confused because they're in school, they're being taught to be worker drones. Mm-hmm. And they're being geared, they're being conditioned for an industrial age that no longer exists in North America. And it's diminishing. And some people are clinging on to their industrial era jobs. And I mean, do ability, and I still feel for them, right? But the ability to say to their kids once upon a time, get a good, safe, secure job and retire with it with a good pension, that is gone. But it's amazing how parents don't know what else to say, and so they still say this.
Yeah.
right? And so one of the famous lines from The Graduate, what was that, 1968, Dustin Hoffman, when the advice in the movie was get into plastics, that's the future, right? Can a parent with any certainty say this is what you should get into in the new age, in the information age, in the world, right? In North America?
For about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And after that, it's crapshoot.
Yes. And so how does a parent who was honestly concerned about their kids, I mean, I'm not talking about the parents that, you know what, Billy, just go figure it out like I did. Be a tough man and go figure it and just do what you got to do. I mean, great, maybe that works for you, but that is not where I come from. That is not what I deal with. I deal with trying to help people through those difficult challenges and those difficult.
So how do you advise, and Gabi, I don't have to tell you, but Phil, jump in, but how do you advise, Roger, parents who are, basically clueless and they're raising kids who are as clueless or worse? How do you advise them to get started in a direction where they can start to take control of their futures versus just bumping along?
Yeah.
How do you get people who have no experience with that?
Right. In the context of that question, how do you counterbalance the effects of the social conditioning that your child is exposed at school? Right. So that was a personal challenge for me because I'm having actually a 12-year-old boy who was diagnosed on the ASD, and when Tim introduced you, right? I know I think he mentioned that you were involved with autistic kids as well, right?
For years and years.
ABA, right? ABA is a word that I learned way too early, and I went digging into the whole literature about this. It was a shock for our family, and so we are very, very familiar, and actually many of the therapists like yourselves, and I just recognize your type, became our close friends because they became our partners.
Yes.
Essentially, like family members almost. And
yes,
my kid really got really fond of them, and they, we knew them all by first name and kept in touch with them for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to the question. Remember like Madonna, for example, right? When she was raising her daughter, I think she admitted in some way in some interview that she does not allow her to watch TV. She's homeschooling her, right, and do all that, right? How do we counterbalance those effects as parents? It's an interesting, fascinating question. I'm doing this every day. That's my challenge.
Yeah, both great questions. Let's dig into this then. So first of all, Gabby, my profound respect for any parent that has a child with autism. Autism is, and anything on the spectrum is very near and dear and close to my heart. I've worked with kids and adolescents and adults with autism for just about 20 years, I give or take. And I've worked in schools, and I've worked in the government-run institutions where the kids were too violent to ever live at home, and they could never live at home. And I've also been that therapist that was in the home and had meals with the family sometimes and got to know them and received birthday presents from them and all that other stuff. And I still keep in contact with certain families to this day, and I haven't worked with them in years because you develop such a profound connection both with the individual and with the family. So my profound respect to you, sir, for that, because it is a tough, tough road. And I'm going to say tougher than a lot of roads. I'm going to say tougher than, sorry, I shouldn't make comparisons. I'm just going to say that I have a profound respect for autism because I think it's a very challenging state to be in for a parent and for a caregiver to deal with that. So how do you counterbalance that? And Tim, your question, how do you guide parents? And I think, Tim, I'm going to take your question first just to say, you touched upon it earlier when you said, you can't teach what you don't know. And so here you are as a parent, and you're worried about your kids, or you're an uncle and you're worried about your nieces and nephews, and what do you do? And so one of the first things I say is, before we go through a program for your kids, you have to go through the program with me to teach yourself what you don't know. And so the very first part of this is, and I'm doing this from a place of trying to serve your audience, and I'm not doing a shameless plug for anything that I do. So when I say program, it's not like a subtle hint to say, oh, Roger's got a program, he's going to try and pitch me at the end. It's not that at all. Okay. Well, what I'm going to say is that one of the first things that I do, and that I recommend a person does with themselves when they're truly worried about their kids, is to get in contact with who they truly are and what are their motivations, and what are some of the rules in their mind that they've used in raising their kid. And it goes back kind of like that script thing. Are boys supposed to be the strong and silent type, or is it okay to cry? Or is it crying a wussy baby kind of thing to do, right? By having that thought, are you preventing your child from actually speaking to you later on in life, especially during those turbulent teenage years when your brain is literally refiring and reorganizing itself, and more electrical activity goes on during the teenage years than at any other time except for the early years of development as a baby, right? And so, when you say teenagers are out of their mind, you're actually bang on, because their brain is literally being rewired with all the new stuff that they learn from adolescence onwards. And so you cannot have a deep and in-depth conversation with your child until you know what your hot button is. And so one of the things I say is, what do you want? And I usually start my session that way. What do you want? And it is such a deceptively simple question, because it is amazing how often when I ask that question, the person sits back stunned and says, I always, I'll tell you what I don't want. And then they default to this, I don't want this. And it's like, wow, you can articulate so clearly the pains in your life, but you can't tell me your pleasures. How on earth do you propose that you're going to get those things then, if you don't know what you actually want? And how on earth are you going to guide your kids if you can't have a conversation like this with them? Right. So one of the first things, get to know yourself. The second thing that I talk about is what kind of behaviors do you model? And when I say this, I use an example of, I have to ask my kid to clean up his room 6 times before he actually does it, or I have to tell him to empty the dishwasher 3 times before they'll do it. And that drives me crazy. How do I change that, Raj? And so I come back to them with, okay, so you have a problem in this area, your kid doesn't listen to you. Let me ask you this. When your spouse asks you to take out the garbage, when your spouse asks you to paint the garage, or your spouse asks you to hem a pair of pants, whatever it may be, male or female, how many times do you have to be asked before you do it? 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, right? Do you say, well, I'll do it Saturday and today's Monday, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Again, I don't make judgments about the way people conduct themselves in general. Now, there's certainly egregiously wrong behaviors that, yes, I'm human and I can't help but have a very strong opinion about certain things, especially when I see an injustice being done. But when people conduct themselves in a certain way, that's fine. But just understand the role and the connection between that thing that you do, that way that you conduct yourself, and the relation to what your kids are learning and what they're picking up on. Because the truth of the matter is they're going to model 50% of what you do right and 100% of what you do wrong. And I don't know why it works that way, but it works that way. Yeah. And so look at your own behavior. I'll tell you a really great story. A friend of mine that I hadn't seen since probably about early university called me up a while ago and said he wants to go and have a meal. He got caught up on what we were doing and stuff like that. He heard about what I do, and then he says, let me ask you a question, Raj. He goes, I can't get my son off of a cell phone or his iPad at the dinner table, at people's houses, in the car, at late at bed at night. I can't get him away from a screen. How the heck do I change that? So let me back up and say that over the course of about a 90-minute meal with this guy, he answered 2 phone calls and I think 3 or 4 texts and sent off a couple of emails. While, and when I say it like this, it's really obvious, right? It's glaringly obvious. But when you're in your own fog, it's foggy, as one of my mentors says, right? You don't see your own stuff. But I, on the outside, I can see this guy, and he is modeling the very behavior that bugs the crap out of him for his kids. And so I had to sit back, and I know that he doesn't have any insight into his own behavior. I know that, right? And so I have to say this with love and kindness and respect. So I said, but he's also my buddy too, so I've got to be a little snarky with him too. So I said, let me get this straight. You don't know how to get your kid off of a screen of some sort. You think he's obsessed with a screen. Is that what you're saying? Fascinating. And the sarcasm was lost on him, and I had to actually break it down for him and said, how many emails did you answer while I've taken time out of my life to come and catch up with you? And it was a pleasure thing, right? But we're also talking about some important stuff here. And he's asking for free advice, and I have no problems giving free advice, right? That's not my issue at all. But you're asking for a clinical perspective here on something. And I'm asking you to now look at your own behavior. Don't get defensive either, right? Yeah. I'm doing this to try and help you. And so to answer your question in a really roundabout way, sorry, Tim, is that...
Sorry, that's how I do it too.
Is to look at yourselves first and get in touch with the things that you are actually the things that is your purpose, the thing that is your passion, the thing that you want to achieve both materially, physically, spiritually, right? I talk about the Holy Trinity all the time: mind, body, spirit, thought, word, deed, material, spiritual, and physical, and emotional. I mean, I'm all about that. So when you start being questioning those things, and when you call those things into question for yourself and for the way you conduct yourself with others, then you are ready to have this conversation with your child, and then you can start steering them. I mean, when I propose to, and I'm going to use again the example of my Subway shop owner, when I proposed to him that I want you to go home and have a very serious, profound conversation with your, a 14 and 11-year-old kid, children, right? I want you to go and have a very profound conversation with your 14 and 11-year-old to say, what is your passion? And he says, what are you talking about? I can't ask my kids that. And I was like, wow. I'm like, how sad is it that there's now such a chasm in that relationship that you are embarrassed as a parent to have this kind of conversation with your kid, right? And so I learned that I had to do a little bit more work with him first before he was ready to go in and have this profound conversation with his kids, right? But the point is that at some point, these meaningful conversations that sometimes never, ever occur in your relationship with your kid, until sometimes maybe it's even too late, if ever, right? Have those conversations sooner and say, listen, I love you. I want what's absolute best for you. And if you were like me, then maybe you didn't know what you want to do with yourself. And I don't want you to have to stress about this. I'm here to guide you, and I want to help you with this part, because this is going to have more of a profound effect on your life than almost anything else, save for the relationship that you have with your spouse. Mm-hmm. This one thing.
I want to jump in.
Yes.
Because you're in all of the things that you're saying, you keep sort of outlining the importance of, if you're struggling with any particular area in your life and you can't see the answers, you need somebody from the outside in some form, right? Whether you can talk to them live, in person, or on the phone, or across the internet, or whatever, or maybe it's coming as in the form of a book or an audio of some kind. You need some other input, somebody else who can put the questions to you that will make a difference. Because if you're struggling with this stuff, you don't know the answers to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
it's such a key point.
Yeah.
That sometimes you need more input. And again, whether that's a live person, whether that's a well-written book, whether that's listening to a podcast like this, you need a different perspective, because if you knew the answer, you would have done it by now.
Right.
Right. But I am gonna preface that by saying one thing, though. I don't necessarily believe in every situation that when you're stuck that you don't have the answer, that you don't know the answer. I think you just need to be asked in a different kind of way. And sometimes what you need is somebody, either through print or live, to ask a question to you to make you think about something from a very different perspective.
Right.
And so, and you know, I'm going to use another example right now of, and I think it's from Tony Robbins, when he says, ask a better quality of a question when you're trying to find the answer to something, right? So if I think he used the example of, if you want to lose weight, it's not how do I lose weight? The essence of the question is, how do I lose weight in a way that I will find enjoyable? Because when I find it enjoyable, I will be more likely to stick to a program. But if I associate as pain with working out, I'm not going to stick with it. That's why some programs fail, because you're not in tune with your own natural behavior, right? And so I very much like when I work with people, and you know, I was working with a 21-year-old male yesterday, very, very nice individual who's sad and stuck. And I try really, really hard not to answer for him, even though sometimes the answer is glaring to me, right? I want to ask the question, so kind of Socratic method, right? I want to ask the question in a way that they find the answers within themselves. And I think sometimes the answers are there. You just don't know they're there because you haven't taught to think about it from a different perspective.
Right.
And sometimes, I agree though, a lot of times you need different input. You just need to think about things from a different, more information or different information, or just being delivered to you in a different kind of way, and this way resonates with you, right? Some people resonate with me and some people definitely don't. And I have a particular way and a particular style of doing things. And I'm going to say, like, teenagers a lot of times resonate with me because I kind of I kind of have a very casual way of doing stuff, and I'm not a formalized, programmatic kind of guy. So I was aimed to be very, very much in tune with the person insofar as I can be, even with my own stuff. And I'm trying to reach them, but it has to be authentic to me too. If I can't be authentic with that person, well, I'm doing them a disservice. And that's why when I coach parents, you know, I say, don't try to be that father on TV or that mother on TV. Don't try to think, oh, well, I'm the father, so you should listen to me and blah, blah, blah. And you've lost them. You've absolutely lost them, especially as they get older. If to think that's strictly authoritarian, do this because I said it should be, in my opinion, it's not the best way. I'm not going to say it's wrong, because wrong and right is a relative term in so many things. But I'm going to say I don't think it's the best way to get a behavioral change in somebody.
Well, you know, it goes to this idea that has the marketing people have learned relatively recently that authenticity is important, right? Authenticity sells. And when you're trying to sell something, you're just trying to get somebody else to do something that may or may not be against what they might naturally do, but you're trying to get them to do something. And you have to, well, what we've learned is that it's easier to do if you're honest about the product or the service or who you are and that kind of thing, versus putting on some kind of image to make people think a certain way.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to, it's like you're lying basically, and it's easier to just tell the truth and remember what you said than it is to make up a bunch of lies and try to keep track of all that stuff.
That's right.
And it applies across the board. Sales is, you know, when raising your kids, you're selling them stuff all the time.
All the time.
Every interaction with another person is a sales interaction. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'd like to do? I want to invite you to let's give me, you know, some final thoughts on this.
Yeah.
And, because Gabi, for some people who might be watching, Gabi had to leave, and this hour has gone by really, really fast.
Really fast.
We haven't scratched the surface. So I'm gonna commit you right now. I'm not even gonna ask. You're coming back again, and we're gonna dig deeper on some of this stuff, and you know, bring some more stuff out. But I want Gabi to be a part of it, and I know he wants to be. So, but so finish up any thoughts that you had there, and then we'll just talk about, you know, where people can find you and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that some of the most life-changing, most profound conversations you can have with another person is around who are they and how do they think? What do they want? Is it truly what they want, or is it what they've been told to want or conditioned to want? Right? And so I am so flabbergasted and turned off by bland conversations about the weather and about what's on TV. That is so not conversations that I engage in for very long, if at all. When I speak to people, I always try to leave them feeling better than when I first met them. And one of the ways in which I do that, I always say, you know what? Who you are is okay. There's nothing wrong with who you are. And if you aspire to be a better version of yourself, and God bless you, that is the journey that I'm on. And anything that I can do to help you, I so will. Because I was born that way, and it took me a long time to realize this about myself, that I was born that way, to work with people and to help ease pain in whatever way that I'm able to. So one of the things I say to people is, ask yourselves some questions and say, who am I really? What do I actually really want? What do I truly aspire to create or have in this world? And when you start thinking about those types of things, you might be amazed at what a profound difference that can be from the life that you're leading right now. And maybe just by me asking those questions, that is the little bug that puts you on a whole new direction. And I'm immensely gratified if I can help improve your life in that small way. So that's my thing.
I want to add to that even that's one of those things that seems like a simple question. Yeah. And you can ask yourself, what do I want in terms of this relationship? And you may have an answer, but the answer doesn't, it's a surface answer. And it's hard, if you're not aware of that, it's hard to get below that, because, well, this is what I want. And why doesn't she do it the way I want it? Right? And so it's if you start out, maybe this is maybe what I want to say, is that if you start asking questions of yourself and it's not difficult to answer, then you need that outside input, I think, to ask a different question, or ask the same question in a different way, or to ask a follow-up question that digs deeper, something, because if the answers come quick and easy, then you're not making any progress. You're not really putting much thought into it. Something that's just you're not getting deep on it.
That's right.
And if you're struggling with it, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, man.
Right there.
let's tell people. I know you weren't going to sell anything, but let's tell people how they find you and
Sure.
That, and then we'll bring you back and we'll do it again.
Yeah, I'd love to. The time did fly. So my book is available on Amazon. It's called The Fearless Parent, 20 Ways to Inspire Success, Respect, and Gratitude. That's currently available. The second book on infinite abundance is something that's a work in progress, and I'm still getting input from different people and different parents and stuff like that, and then different entrepreneurs. So that might be out by the end of this year. I've got so many projects that I'm not sure yet. You can also reach me. I love having conversations with you. And again, it's not something where you have to buy my program in order to speak to me. Not at all. I'd love to hear your story and help you in some way that I can, if that's what you want. And if you just want to tell me your story, I love stories too. So you can reach me at www.thefearlessparent.com. And make sure you put on the .com, because if you don't put on the .com, you go to a different website. So www.
Yeah, give that again, because you kind of cut out a little bit.
Sorry, it's at www.thefearlessparent.com. And you can also reach me at Roger at thesecondauthenticlife.com. Sorry, secondauthenticlife.com. So it's Roger at 2ND, secondauthenticlife.com. And get in contact with me if you want to. Love to hear your story.
Great. All right, Roger, thank you
Tim,
again.
So much fun with you, Tim.
This has been really good. I knew it would be, and just didn't know how much it would be.
Yeah.
So, we have to do it again.
Love to.
Cool.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.